everyone, and welcome back to another beautiful episode of Scholar ChitChat. Yes, of course, I'm your beautiful host, Goodness, and today we have a special guest who has successfully navigated how to access funding for graduate studies in Canada, and I'm sure you are so itching to hear our voice. But before I let her speak, let me do a very brief introduction of her. That her name is Ike Oluwa, and of course she's so versatile that she's here to give us every nitty-gritties of the things you need to know, every little details of you getting that funding in Canada. And yeah, welcoming Ike Oluwa.
Thank you so much, Goodness. I am so happy to be here. I'm excited to share about my, should I say story? But I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm actually very, very excited that I have to do this, this interview with you. Because before I let the cat out of the bag, don't let me jump into the main story. Let's start off. How were you able to know about the fundings in Canada? Let's start with that. How were you able to get the information? Where were you able to get the information? What motivated you to apply specifically in Canada?
Okay, so my story is a little bit, I won't say complicated, but has two different legs, because I actually did my master's in the US and I'm doing my PhD in Canada. So I know quite a bit about the two systems. But for Canada itself, how did I know about funding? Very easy, at least for me. I just went online. People usually don't believe it can be this easy. But so I went online, I checked the schools that I was interested in, and I sent them an email. Very straightforward. I am applying to this program. I'm interested in this. This is what I want to do. Do you guys have funding to cover me to do this? The people that had said yes. The people that didn't have said no. So it can be as straightforward as that. One thing I would always say though is always reach out to these schools. They always respond. They would never leave you unread. They would always respond. And then what motivated me to apply? Like I said, my background is a little different from others, but I wanted to move countries, I guess. So that was one of the major motivations behind applying to Canada, or to study in Canada.
All right, thank you. So you made mention of something that they did respond to you. Like, how long did it take them to give you a response?
I don't think I have messaged anybody in the Canadian education system that took them longer than 2 days, and I'm not even exaggerating.
Wow.
If they get back to you that day, they get back to you the very next day, and they are always very helpful. If they can't help you, they would direct you to, they'll be like, I don't know about this, but can you reach out to this person? I even had someone set up the call with me. Yeah, that's last year. That was what is 2024 or 2023. I can't remember which exactly now, but there was a year when I had someone set up a call with me just because they wanted to really go through all the things I needed to, all the answers I needed questions to. So it really takes about a day or two. Worst case scenario, I'll say 3 to 4 days.
All right. So for this funding, what does it cover? Does it cover your flight, application fee? I mean, you said you studied in US, so you applied to Canada. So did it cover your application fees, your flight ticket, your accommodation, health insurance?
So flight tickets, no. Application fees, no.
Wow.
Application fees, flight ticket, no. When we talk about funding in Canada, it's a little different. So you get a scholarship basically, then you get a research. You can also get a research assistantship and a teaching assistantship. But basically, you get money that pays your fees. Out of that money, you also pay your insurance. It's like a whole package. Let me use a round figure. They give you 100,000 Canadian dollars, for instance. Out of it, you pay your fees. Out of it, you pay your insurance. Out of it, you get your stipends. Basically, one bulk sum, and then they start to break it down for you into different things. Wow. But it doesn't cover application fees, doesn't cover flights. Your accommodation, you can pay for your accommodation when you get your stipend. So that's, let's say yes. Health insurance, because you can pay for it from your stipend. That also, let's just say yes.
So for the application fee, is there an application fee waiver?
I would say from my knowledge, I would say no. I didn't ask for one, but I do not think they also have one. But I'll say no, from my knowledge, no. And it's usually a little on the pricey side as well, ranging from about, I think, 70 Canadian dollars to 120. So it can be on the pricey side, I would say that.
Well, for you going for that, that means the scholarship really worth it. If the application is on a very high side, and the stipend should be able to cover some major things you will need as a student.
Yeah, eventually, when you start earning money from the scholarship, you'll be fine. You would even forget that you paid $70 or 120 Canadian dollars to get the application fee done. So eventually everything will balance out. I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay, that's good to know. So speaking of applications now, are there selection criteria for the Canada scholarship? And how can someone who wants to apply, what are their chances in terms of selection?
Okay, so I'm going to do a little breaking down from, I know we are talking a lot about Canadian scholarships, but it's also good to point out that it's the individual school that gives you this money, right? So just to be clear, like different schools, the University of Toronto, University of Guelph, it's whatever school you apply to that gives you money. Now, talking about applications, I would say one of the things that I think stood out in my application was my statement of purpose and my grades. So very important. Those two very, very important, because your statement of purpose is basically telling you or telling them about you. Why are you coming here? Why should we fund you, basically? Also about grades, you need to do really well. The Canadian education system is somewhat more competitive in that there are not as many schools in Canada as there is in the US. So they are like, I don't have it off the top of my head, but they do not have a lot of universities, right? So it's more competitive to come to graduate school here than it is to go to the US. So you need to show them that I am different and I am what you want, right? You are going to be spending how many $1,000s on me? I am good enough. So if I was going to summarize this, I would say you definitely have to, for selection, you have to think about academic, like your academic criteria. It has to be good. You also have to talk about things about like the potential impact of what you want to do. And it doesn't have to be about your home country. It doesn't have to be about maybe Nigeria, Ghana. It can be about the US, it can be about Canada. For instance, now I have part of my research interest in sustainability, which really applies anywhere and everywhere. So you don't have to limit yourself to wanting to work in Africa or wanting to work in a particular location. Anything really works. And I think there's also one more question. How applicants can increase their chances. I don't know if we get to this later, but when it comes to writing your statement of purpose, I think I've read quite a bit of like just reviewing others, and there's usually a disconnect. People are usually not able to like explain exactly what they want to be doing, and they are not able to tie like their work experiences, their life experiences into their statement of purpose. So one of the things I would say is for you to increase your chances, you really need to have that sorted. You need to, and when you write it, also get people to proofread it for you. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's necessary.
A good thing you could also do is get on, should I say, an interested party to read it. Someone that has no knowledge of what you are doing or what you're, just someone uninterested. How does it come across to them, right? Yeah. It's good to have your friends read it, but then your friends will already know about you and then they are giving you like a biased view. So I would say to increase your chances, you really want to have good grades from be it undergrad or be it your master's degree, and you also want to have a good statement of purpose.
All right, so like for the grades now, is it first class, second class, or can second class do also apply for?
I graduated with a second class upper, right? Okay. And I know quite a bit of my friends, well, almost, it doesn't matter. I know quite a bit of my friends that graduated with first class, second class upper that did make it. But then when we are talking about second class upper, I think when you want to give yourself a chance, you want to be at the upper end, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The university I went to was over a 5-point scale. You want to give yourself a chance and have over a 4. A first class is a 4.5, right? But if you want to be a competitive 2-1, which is the second class upper, you want to be like a 4 point something out of a 5. Okay. That's to give yourself a really good chance.
So that means those with lower grades, Canada or Canadian scholarship is not a very good zone for them.
Not that really. Like when I had spoken to like the people I'm currently working with now, and I've asked about like my application and whatnot, it's not just your grades that they take into. They don't just think about everything about you based on your grades, but it's very important. So if you're going with a 3.6 or a 3.7, then other areas of your application have to be really strong. Probably work experience that is already in the line of what you want to do that you can tie in, or an SOP that really stands you out. But something else has to complement or compensate for the lack of the good grades. That's just how it goes.
So I'm chipping in this. You said you had to contact some schools, like you had to reach out to some schools that you were interested in this particular research course, and they had to give you a feedback. Is it that the particular research topic you were interested in, you had to go through probably a professor that needed a student or an applicant to fill that role also, or how were you able to see that okay, you are going to meet the need of this particular school?
There are two ways to go about this. One way is finding a professor, reaching the professor, then applying to the school. Another way, which I also highly recommend, which I've also done, is just go online. You first of all need to know, what am I trying to get a degree in? That's very important. For instance, am I trying to get a master's in accounting? You start with that. Master's in accounting, Canada. That's just on Google. Just put it out on Google. Master's in accounting, Canada. Then by the side, you write scholarship. Of course, you need to write that for you to limit your search. You don't want all the schools in Canada that will not give you funding, right? You only want big ones. So you can start with Master's in accounting, Canada. It will give you some options. This is where a lot of people now give up. You need to open up every one that it gives you. You might not open up all the 20, but at least the first 10 to 15. You need to open them up and be like, find the department. So probably Department of Management, that's where accounting is. There's almost always a funding page. I don't think I've seen that's if they have it. They almost always have a page of, they are possible, we can fund you maybe 50%. Some of them will not be explicit in how much money they can give you and things like that, which is where you then go. There's going to be an email address there as well. They will be like, contact us if you want to know more, things like that. You then send them an email saying, I'm interested in this. How much funding do you have for this program and whatnot? When they give you that answer, you then decide, okay, now I know about this school. Is it worth it for me to apply? Is the funding good enough? You can compare your options, right? And there are some schools you don't even have to reach out to them because they already explicitly state it on their website. This is how much they are going to give per year. This is what they are going to do per year. That one is very straightforward. You can also go through the route of having a professor, meeting a professor first. And you can do that from LinkedIn. Another very good way, I'm still very insistent on, is even the website. Yeah. Sometimes you can open this website, go to the department, click on staff. It will show you all the professors. These professors usually have a bio, right? Yeah. And some of them actually indicate just after the bio, looking for graduate students. Very straightforward. And their email address is also going to be there. All you have to do after that is, someone is looking for a graduate student. You are interested in doing this master's degree or PhD degree, whatever it might be. You need to write up a email. This is what I'm doing. This is what my interests are. I feel like my interests align with yours. Are you willing to have a chat? Maybe they are willing to talk about it or not. Most of the times, these people will get back to you. Some might say, before they have a chat, send me your unofficial transcript or just things to get to know you better, things like that, then they will schedule a call. Some people might say, they probably already got a student, but you will never if you don't try. That's the very thing. You have to try. You have to be willing to put in the work to get results, basically.
Well, thank you so much. You've actually broken that down. Of course, it's very even important that aside one trying to get a funding, at the same time, you should also, develop oneself, not just in the area of grades, but in the area of work experience, which could also augment your chances of getting a funding. Okay, let's move away from that. Let's look at how were you, or what were the steps you took personally in preparing for this particular stage, each of the stages you mentioned. What were your strategies? How did you go about carrying out your strategies, and what helped you during your application?
So I think I'm going to give you a summary of the 2 times I've applied, because I've applied for a master's degree, I've applied for a PhD, but my emphasis is on Canada, right?
Yeah.
For every time, you need to have your application documents all ready. You need to know, you need your transcripts, you need your certificates, because your references only come to play when you do apply, but you need to know who is providing you a reference. You need to start having those conversations now. So for me, what I did was I got my transcript. I got one thing to say, your passport. A lot of people do not think about that. Your passport. Some of the application processes will tell you to fill in your passport. Not all of them, to be honest. I've done quite a few, but some of them will tell you to fill in your passport passport details. Imagine not having one. So you should have your passport, have your transcript, have your certificates, know the people that are going to provide references for you. After that, of course, you want to work on your SOP. I have found that you don't want to rush your SOP process. You don't want to rush your statement of purpose process. The first time I had to write one, I started writing it about 2-3 months before I actually needed it, because that way I was able to write it in bits. I was able to always edit it and see if the current version that I have makes the most sense. What I think another mistake I've seen a lot of people make is trying to write your SOP. Maybe you are due to submit something tomorrow and then you want to start writing it last week. No, you're not giving yourself enough time to actually look at that document, actually see if, you're not giving the document enough time to evolve. I think that's the best way to put it, because you have written it in a rush. You have not had people review it. You have not been able to ponder on it, and then you want to submit it. I would say the minimum is a month. The minimum that I've started writing my statement of purpose is a month not even before my deadline, before I start my application. A month before I start my application, and I never start my application the day of the deadline. So in total, I'll say 2 months. Then something else apart from SOP is you also want to, in your SOP, like I also said earlier, you want to be able to say just exactly what you bring to the table. You are asking for money or you need the money. You need to be able to categorically say what you bring to the table. If people are able to plan ahead, months ahead, I think they'll be quite successful in the application process, to be honest. Oh, something else that I did not mention. Of course, you are not going to send the same statement of purpose to every school. That does not. Yeah, your statement of purpose has to be unique to every application that you submit. You have to really understand, why do I want to go to this school? What is the unique properties of this school? How can we work together? How can we produce good results together? Those are the things you put in one statement of purpose, which is why it's not a process to rush. If you're applying to 5 schools, you have to find out about 5 different schools. You have to find out about 5 different professors that might be willing to take you on. So a lot of work goes into it. So you want to give yourself time.
Well, that's actually true, especially for SOPs. You even really need people to review it for you, because you are not the one that is going to grade yourself or give yourself success for the application, right? They are going to have committee of people that are going to be sitting over series, thousands of SOP. And of course, as an applicant, you want your own SOP to stand out because you're competing. Yeah, and also, most importantly, passport. I mean, I can even apply for funding or for application outside your home country and you don't have a passport.
Well, some people usually just forget that that's an important stage, which is why it's good that we're talking about it now.
Yeah, that's one criteria. In short,
even if you're not sure about, am I going to do this? Just have it. Just keep it somewhere. When you need it, you go pick it up.
That's just it. Passport is very, very necessary. And your transcript, your certificate, all those things are the basic requirements that you even...
Before you even think of SOP writing, have them in your bag. Just be looking at it. After that, you start the SOP.
That's true, and that's very necessary. Thank you for also restating on that you really need to have your passports, your transcripts, unofficial, official transcript, and your certificate. Okay, moving away from that, what are the types of funding that are offered directly by Canadian universities?
Okay, so it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. So it's a scholarship and an assistantship mixed all in one. The scholarship part is supposed to cover your tuition and fees. Then the assistantship part is supposed to be it's your income, basically. I think that's the easiest way to put it. That's your stipend. So it's a mix of scholarships and there's also different types. It can be a teaching assistantship where you're only assisting professors and you're a TA, which is a teaching assistant, or it can be a research assistantship, which is a RA. Different ways to go about it. But ideally, when you get your offer letter, it's going to be a mix. It's usually not just one thing. Mine, for instance, is a mix of scholarships, research assistantships, and teaching assistantships. So it can be a mix of all 3. It can be a mix of 2. It can be 1. But 3 types majorly here: scholarships, research assistantships, and teaching assistantships.
Okay, thank you so much for bringing a light into that. And for applications, Are there any language requirements or are there any exams one have to have written for a student to apply?
When it comes to language, this is very university specific. Some people will let you submit your application without taking an English test if you're able to prove that you did your undergraduate or your graduate studies in English, right? Which most of us in different countries did. But some schools will also ask you for a English test. But like I said, this is why it is very important for you by yourself to go online and search for the requirements. It will always be in the requirements. If they need you to write a language test, it will be there. If it can be waived, it will also be there, right? Some people would write, for instance, we need you to submit a language test or an English test. But if you did your undergrad in English and you can provide proof of this, send us an email. They will waive that part for you, right? But you need to read the requirements first to know. Some schools will never waive it. There's that as well. But you by yourself, which is why if you start with 15 schools or 10 schools and you know you don't want to do an English test, it's very easy. Look for other schools that do not require an English proficiency test. So that's one of the exams that you can write. Some schools also require GRE, not as popular as it used to be. But it's basically the same thing I said before. If they require it, it will be on the website. If there's a way they can waive it, it will also be on the website. If you're unclear about, can they waive something for me? You send an email, they'll let you know, we have never waived this for anybody. Under no circumstances will we waive this. And then do I want to go ahead with this application or do I just want to end it here? But basically, it always depends on the school and their own processes. But every school has a different thing, really.
Okay, so that means they need to read about the school and the requirements, what they need before applying.
Read about the requirements before applying. Don't just start. Some people have also seen that mistake where people start the process without fully understanding what it requires. So you start applying, then half of the way you find out that they want you to write an English proficiency test. And you already set it up. What time are you going to use to study? What time are you going to use to write the test? That's not going to work. Which is why you need to know before you even start. Do I want to put in an application? Can I meet all the requirements? If you can't, fine. There are always other options. You move on to another school that you can meet the requirements for.
That's true. So I want to chip in. This is a question I want to ask. There was a time I joined a webinar concerning Canadian schools, and the person anchoring the webinar made mention that there are some schools that have fundings for particular countries. So I want to ask you, how true is that? For Africans, there are universities that they have a secret funding kind of that you just need to make further research and this university they do give more fundings to this particular country or this particular continent.
This question is a little difficult to answer because in my experience, I don't think I found it to be very true. I feel like they are more, especially when it comes to graduate studies, right? They are on what you can offer and your academic merits and things like that than your background. But also know that some of these schools also have funds you can access because you're from a particular place. Okay. So even though I've seen them accept different people, right? But different people that can also access more money just because they are from a particular place. But I've yet to come across a school. I know it's very popular for undergraduate studies where they are very focused on, they are going to give full scholarships to someone from Nigeria or from Ghana, things like that. But when it comes to graduate studies, I really haven't seen that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I just haven't seen it.
You made mention of Dalhousie University that's majorly for Africans. More Africans do good there because I think your success rate of application, if you are from Africa.
It's also very possible. It's very possible. Like I said, it's just something I haven't personally experienced, but it's also very possible. Some schools will take more from true, and it's usually because they have come to realize that the students from this place really do a good job, right? So when they have one Nigerian, for instance, and they are this Nigerian is really doing a good job. When I did my master's, for instance, we were in my set, I was the only Nigerian. They said after me had 2 Nigerians. So it's things like that. It just increases when they are we are seeing what these people can do. They're really good. Definitely. So it might have some merit to it. I just haven't experienced it.
So we have two more questions, but one more question, the second to the last question to go. Just like saying, if you're a chef and you're cooking, there's this one kind of special ingredient you add that will make your recipe very, very unique. So for those that are applying to Canadian University, what's like this special different ingredient or special recipe that they really need to at least get, let's say, a certain percentage that, oh yes, at least their application is very strong or makes it stronger?
Okay, I think we're going back to the beginning. So I would say two things: good grades and a brilliantly written SOP. I don't think we mentioned this. The competition is really high. I wanted to apply for a PhD program, and I, of course, like I told you, I reached out to the school and I asked, like, what are the rates? How many people do they get in every year? And I think they told me they get like 120 applications or 150, and they only take 2 students. Like, huh? Like, yeah, I'm not even kidding you. They're like 2 students. I'm like, oh, really? Interesting. But and that was not the only school that said something along the line of being very competitive. So if you want to have better chances, you really need to have good grades, and you really need to be able to tie your statement of purpose to something that is of value to the school. You don't just want to be generic. You don't just want to be giving them I wrote, this is me, take me. No. Because the competition is really high, you really need to find out what makes you stand out. And a very good way to do this might also be talking to professors before you apply. Because if the competition rate is really high and you are able to talk to a professor that is already willing to work with you, makes life easy for everybody. You're applying with almost 100% confidence that, oh, I will get this, right? Yeah. Because you already talked to someone that is willing to supervise you. So I would say let me just say 3 things: really good grades, a statement of purpose that says what you can offer, and probably to professor about it before you apply.
All right. So wrapping off, what's your last word to give those that are considering applying to graduate studies in Canada?
Something I usually tell myself is you get 0% of the things you don't apply for. I think that has been, should I say, my life motto for a while now. Because I've been applying for quite a while and I've really been successful in my applications too. But you get 0% of the things you don't apply for. You always have to try. That's just it. Will you get 100% acceptance rate? Probably not. But if you don't apply at all, you're definitely not even going to get a 1% acceptance rate. So you just have to keep on trying. Even when it seems like, oh, this might not pan out, still apply. Even when it seems like, oh, I don't know how this will work out, just try. And even if the first time you don't get it, like the first round you don't get it, you did learn something from that experience that you can use at the second trial. So basically, if I'm talking to anybody, I would just say, give it your best shot. Try. If you fail, start again. That's just how life is.
All right. Thank you so much, Ike.
Thank you so
much. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
My name is very funny to pronounce. Ike Oluwa.
Okay, Ike Oluwa. Sorry. Thank you so much for this deep insights you've shared to us, and also your experiences. And what I can draw, just a summary of it, is for you interested in applying for Canadian schools, try and get your passport, your transcript, your certificate. Then to aid your application, try and work on your SOP really, really well, have good grades, and also speak to professors who will be willing to supervise you. And from there, you'll be good to go. And also, don't just give up after one try. Keep on trying till you hit the nail on the head and say, yes, I succeed at last. And at least all your effort over the years is not just going to go down the drain. Thank you so much for joining us in this special episode. I'm really grateful, and I also wish you the best in all your endeavors. All right, and that's a wrap. Until next time, keep striving and stay inspired. Of course, don't forget to subscribe and like our page, Scholar ChitChat. We're always there for you to cater for all your graduate school palava or wala or anything you want to get concerning graduate school. Just come down to Scholar ChitChat. We are there to be at your beck and call. Thank you and enjoy this.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Scholar ChitChat. If you found our conversation insightful and enjoyable, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated. We've got a lot more in store and we don't want you to miss out.
We are always diving into topics like this: academics, scholarship, professional life, and the international student experience. It's what makes Scholar ChitChat your go-to podcast for a fresh perspective. Also, don't keep all this wisdom to yourself. Share this episode with your friends and family who could benefit from it. We are building a community of learners and would love for you to be a part of it.
Your thoughts matter to us. We want to hear from you. Drop your comments and questions in the chat, or send your questions, suggestions, and comments to scholarchitchat@gmail.com. Your input helps shape the future of Scholar ChitChat.